Hello friends, welcome to Xenier Coding Web Development Platform. In today's session, I'm going to explain the concept of HTML, CSS and JavaScript. It comes under the game development and the topic is particle. So you can able to see a lot of particles over here where I'm just clicking my mouse button over here and it started to colliding with each other and all the particles are hitting on the collisions, on the explosions maybe. So once if it is the explosion is done, in the sense you can be able to see on the left corner it is processing the score is displaying. So out of 26 I have secured of 24, still the two particles are remaining over here. Again I'm just clicking the button, it starts my collision over here. Now it is hitting and it is processing continuously the explosion is going on. You can able to see it and still 5 particles or doesn't collide with the explosion. That is what my score is displaying as 21. So we just want to understand what are the basic things which we want to implement on the JavaScript to execute this program. So without delay we can start the source code of this particular program in the Xenier platform. On the heading tag, I'm going to add my style sheet of link, a relative style sheet and with the reference of style.css. So I'm just closing this heading tag. On the continuation of my body part, I'm going to add my h1 part as particle game. Here you can add any titles. Since I'm going to create as a particle basis, I added the thing as particle game. Next I'm going to use a canvas ID where you able to know canvas, it is nothing but mainly used to like make images or any graphical or any kind of an animation is required. In the sense we can use the tag of canvas, and I'm going to split this division basis. This tag I'm going to use. Under this I'm going to set it as stats. This stat, it is nothing but it gives a statistical. Under the inline element I'm going to add as span ID, where my span ID I'm going to make it as score. So you can able to see on my demo, the initial my score value is 0 and I have been setted out of value. So that's the same thing I'm going to continue over here. I'm just closing this inline element, and next I'm going to continue my one more ID of a span ID, where this span ID it is nothing but I'm going to set off my value of out of. So I'm just closing this value, and this particular value is also I'm setting as a 0. Now I'm closing this span and I'm also closing my division part. So this first division is over, and I'm going to continue my second division where I'm going to set the rules, where the division ID which is equivalent to rules. So I'm going to set my rules as if we click anywhere it should start my explosion and it should start the its process. That particular things I'm going to add. Next I'm going to add my scripting part, where the functionality will start over here, where I'm going to set it as script equivalent to script.js. So this is my overall HTML part. Next we can see the JavaScript functionality. So I'm just going to add my file name. So I'm going to set it as script. I'm just closing. I'm just submitting this button. Now my script file is created. So on the JavaScript part, I'm going to make my window of height and width, and I'm going to set their amount with the second basis. And for this, I'm going to use a functionality of variable keyword, where my W will represent my width, which is of window dot inner width. I'm going to set it as inner width. I'm just closing this functionality. So next I'm going to use it as when h is equivalent to window dot inner height. So I'm going to set it as inner height, and I'm just closing this. Next I'm going to make my amount equivalent to, I'm just opening the braces, where I'm going to set as W into h, that is width into height, and it should be subtract with my values of 10,000, and I'm going to use an additional operator of over here. So next I'm closing this statement, and I'm going to make out of dot text content, out of dot text content, which is equivalent to where it should add with my value of amount plus 1. So I'm just closing my statement. Next I'm going to make the as c dot width. C dot width is equivalent to w. I'm closing this part. C dot height, which is equivalent to h, and I'm closing this statement. Next I'm going to make my keyword of variable ctx, which is equivalent to c dot get context. It should be on the 2 dimensions. So I'm going to set it as 2 dimension. If you want to change, you can change it up. I'm closing this statement. So next I'm going to use a keyword of when variable of in game, which is equivalent to false. I'm going to set it as false. This statement, if it is false in the sense, then it should call my each cells that I'm making as empty one. So I'm just closing this. So next I'm going to use a functionality of when function it should give a random color. So for this I'm going to set it as get random it should get my random color. I'm going to set as a get random color, and it should represent my minimum value. Hope you know the minimum value would start from the 0 and the maximum value is 255, where it should return my output, that is written, it should return my RGB of red, green, blue. So this all things have to be represent. So I'm just closing this statement. I'm just making as replace, and I'm going to set it as it should represent my max random value of 0 and maximum value of 255. So you can able to see over here I have setted my CR where it should represent my math.random, and I have been added the addition multiplication operator 255 minus minimum, and I have used the addition operator, that is this particular bar, it is nothing but additional operator. So once if it is done, in the sense whenever I click it should return as false and my function need to be initiated. For this I have set it as clicked equivalent to false, and where I set it as context, their fill style should be black and their context fill rectangle should be 0, 0 width and height. So next I have used the score dot text content as 0, and I have used done the cell as empty one, and I have made their for loop condition where I have used variation of n is equivalent to 0 and n less than amount. I have used the condition checking, and I used the incremental operator. So next it need to push my new cell, and where it represent my new game is true, and it should make my animation process. So next on the continuation of this I am going to make their variation of maximum size. So I am making their variation of maximum size is equivalent to 10, and their minimum size I am just setting as 6. You can change according to your plan. So this is my plan. I'm setting as maximum value is this one. Next, and their maximum variation I'm setting here as 4. So next we need to process their function. So under the function of their each cell, so I'm going to make their size as size with the dimension of x-axis and y-axis, and I'm just So I'm going to set it as minimum size. So once if it is done, in the sense I'm just making as their x-axis, y-axis and virtual axis, and vertical x-axis and vertical y-axis, where I'm going to set it as math values. So I'm just closing the statement and just making as this dot x is equivalent to x, and I'm using the additional operator, and I'm just making as math dot random. This particular thing I'm going to set it as math dot random, and I'm just closing this statement, and I'm multiplying with the value of their width. So I'm just processing. So I'm just continuing for y, vx and vy. So I have used the additional operator over here. Next I have set their vx and vy and with the math.random, and I have used the exploder which is false, and the explosion size is also 10. So next I am going to set their cell to be a prototype. For this I am making a cell prototype which is where they need to update. So I'm just processing as an update, and I'm going to call the function. For this I'm going to use it as this particular thing has been called. I'm going to set the thing is when this dot of x, and when the value is increased, it should make my this dot of vx value is closed. I'm just enclosing this statement. Next, when this dot of y is equivalent to that is y plus equal, where I'm going to make it as this dot of v of y. So I'm just closing this statement. Next I'm going to use an operator of this if this dot x less than 0, and I'm going to use the additional operator where it should be increased with my width, as well as I'm going to check with my y-axis also. So you can able to see over here where I have set this dot of x equal to this of v dot vx, and y-axis also v of y. Next I have used their if condition. I have used the additional operator, and where it checked their value with their respective width, and vx is equivalent to -1. I have set this value. So on the continuation of this, I'm going to make their context dot fill style where I have been set it as this color. So I'm going to choose the keyword of this color, and I'm closing the statement. Next I'm going to make it as this context. It should be began its path. I'm just calling this function also. I'm just closing this statement. Next I'm using ctx dot arc, where I'm making as this dot of x comma this dot of y, and I'm going to use their absolute value functionality. I'm making as math dot abs, and I'm setting as this dot size, it should be represented half of their 2. So I'm just closing this statement and putting their value as a 0. Next I'm going to use the representation as math dot pi star 2. So I'm just making their content to be statement to be closed. Next I'm making their context should be fill, where I'm processing, and I'm just closing their path. I'm just close their path. So this is now over. Next I'm going to make their condition checking, that is if this dot of explode, I'm making their condition it should increase their explosion size. So I'm just done their exploded, in the sense then their size should be greater than 0, and I'm just making their explosion size initially to be 1, and I'm making their division of explosion sizes into 10. Next, I'm making a size is 0.05 and I have used the else condition, then it should be slice, and I made their index should be of this. Index, it is nothing but normally it start from the value of 0 and it end with n. Next, I have used the context of began path, and there I have done use their arc where it should have x-axis, y-axis and explosion basis. Again, I have used their condition of for variable I is equivalent to 0, where I have done my I less than cells dot length. It should be increment their value. Next, I have used the variable of cell, which is of cell equivalent to assign the value of I basis, and I have made their condition checking if their cell dot exploded in the sense, then it should make their this equivalent to b equivalent to cell. Then I have done my variation of distance of x, it is nothing but x minus b, where a and b it is nothing but the constant value. Similarly, I have did for my y-axis, and I have used their operation of math dot square root. This particular it is nothing but it processes the x and y axis. So on the continuation of this, I have used their explosion size, it should be exploded. Then on the context of a stroke style, I have used this dot color and the context of a stroke, and I have made their context of close path. So after the continuation, I have used their prototype, it should be exploded. Now here again I started their functionality, which is of this exploded, it should be true, and I made their v-axis and v of y is 0. Next, I have done my score text content as paras int, where I used their text score text content. So on the initialization, I have used their false, and I used their animation process too. Next, I have used their next initialization, that is false. Now it shows my return statement. So on the final functionality is needed to complete this code, where I'm making as if my game and my window should request the animation. It should request my animation frame, and I'm going to set it as anim. So next I'm going to make the ctx dot fill style, where I'm going to set it as RGBA, and I'm going to set the value of 0, 0, 0, 0.1. So this is over, and finally I'm using my ctx dot fill rect. I'm using this local keyword, and here also I'm setting as 0, 0, w, h. So and I'm closing this statement. Next I'm going to use the variable of c, and for condition I'm going to check for c is equivalent to 0 when c less than length, and I'm just increasing their value, and I'm going to process their cell should be update, and I'm closing their statement. Next I'm going to check if my cells and their length is equivalent to 0, where it should make my game over. So it should close my game actually. So this statement is over. So finally I'm going to make their final thing as add event listener. So I have added my document.add event listener where I have used the click functionalities, and I have used their variable cells as equivalent to new cell, and which I have done my click x-axis and y-axis. I need to push my cell and it should start my explode and click is done. So this is my scripting part. Just we can recollect the HTML part. So we have used the canvas ID, we have used the division ID, and I have set the rules, and I have used the functionality of script basis. So under the script basis, I have used their variable of WH, that is width and height, and I have used the variable of CTX, that is context, and I have used their in-game. Next, we have called the function of random color, and we have initialized the color, and we have made the functionality for the cell. For this particular cell on the continuation, we have used their condition checking, that is if else condition we have used. Next, we have done their animation basis. For this, we have used the functionality of function animation, and we have used for game over also we have wrote the functionality finally. So when it comes for the scripting basis, that is CSS part, we can use any kind of styling basis. I have done their canvas, top, left, and color and white. You can able to see over here. To get this particular source code, you can use the description below, which I have mentioned on the link. You can go through with the link and you can get the source code of this particular program. So let me check now the output over here. I'm just clicking on my web browser itself. You can able to see that we can click anywhere. I'm just clicking. So now the explosion is started. On the left corner, you can able to see it is increasing my value, and the explosion is continuing. So my now current value is 49, 50, 53. It is try to hitting is going on. I hope it will be hit to 60. No, it is not hit at 60. My final value is 56. Again I am clicking. So now the explosion is going on. You can able to see again the value is increasing. Whatever the particle is colliding with the with this, it started to hit. Now my final value, it is maybe ended with, okay, I think it's 69. So out of 80, it secured the value of a 69. Hope this game it has been given a useful information regarding the JavaScript concept. Thank you for watching this video.